Most of us here are pretty surprised by the fence that has people talking this week. Now, it's not on the border. It's not like that fence. It's only an idea. Build a barrier around the state's largest university, which will be UNM, of course, in the state's largest city. So joining me today to give their opinions on this topic and others, we welcome Harry Van Buren, professor in the Anderson School of Management at UNM. Former State Senator Eric Griego is with us. Always love having him here. Former Senator Diane Snyder is back too. Always enjoy you here, Diane. And with us is Cristel Ciarza. She is CEO of Ciarza Social Digital. Glad you're here as well. All right, Harry, as the person at this table most closely connected with the UNM, I got to ask you straight up. This is not an unusual thing. A lot of other urban-based colleges, universities have had to wrestle with this. Was this the right approach?
It was really the wrong approach in a number of ways. First of all, the way this got conceived of and rolled out. So you've got an out-of-state firm in South Carolina that doesn't really understand the dynamics, doesn't understand the stakeholder set, and doesn't understand that UNM, as a public university, really has this broader sort of mission. It doesn't exist for itself, it exists for the community.
That's right.
So the conception of the plan was a big problem. It's not to say that there aren't legitimate security concerns. Clearly there are. This just really seems to be the wrong approach. I think the optics are terrible. Right. UNM really needs to be an open space. It needs to be a space for everybody in the community. So the rollout was really bad. I think the policy doesn't make a lot of sense because you've got a lot of issues related to stuff on Central, for example, or stuff on South Campus. That's not going to be picked up by any of this.
That's right.
So I'm not quite sure what the problem they're trying to solve is. And there really wasn't any conversation on campus. So I found out about this the same way everybody else did.
No kidding.
And if you're thinking about this sort of thing, you think you would involve faculty and staff before you roll out this idea, which is really not landed well.
It's called stakeholders, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I
do teach that for a living. So.
Right, exactly. You know, Cristel, it's interesting. You know, I felt like when my social media blew up, that picture in the Journal was part of the problem that showed that fence going across from the bookstore over to the School of Architecture building.
Yeah.
That really hit people just completely wrong right there. What was your sense of it?
Well, I asked the social media community myself. I took it to my Facebook page just to see what everybody's opinion is. And some of the things that they were saying was a moat would be better. Like, okay.
Kind of fun.
Yeah, and one of the interesting pieces of feedback that somebody said to me was you can't solve adaptive problems with technical solutions. And it's an attempt at a technical Band-Aid for a larger adaptive issue. And I think that person just was spot on with that. You know, they also talked about, or people from the social media community said, you know, money would be better spent on efforts like helping campus police or something along those lines. And I think this is not the first time, though, that UNM was trying to actually take care of a security issue or the security, like you said, the policy part of it. You know, the director or the dean of the Communication and Journalism School actually made a decision not very long ago to actually close off the school to the public, where you'd actually have to use your ID key card or something along those lines, or get buzzed in, et cetera. And I spoke to him, especially as a former adjunct faculty, and I said, what was the decision making? He goes, it was a safety issue because homeless people were sleeping in my bathrooms, and I would be picking up needles from the bathroom floor.
Inside the building?
Inside the building, because they were so close to Central, being on Central and Yale. And so I understand the intent, and it's always, you know, there's an intent that we're trying to solve or a problem we're trying to solve, but the execution might not be poor, and it's a perfect example of it.
Yep. Eric, interesting, 45 pages, 53,000, as Harry mentioned. This, what do they call it, the Main Campus Perimeter Security Access Study. I don't think anyone can fault UNM for commissioning a study about safety on campus. I don't think there's any argument there, but I ask again, are they going about this the right way? And what do they do now to back up and get that kind of community input that maybe should have come on the front end of this discussion? Now they're sort of back in their heels a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is going to go down for one of the biggest bonehead moves of 2019, really. I mean, you know, UNM has had a figurative wall that they've tried to sort of overcome for years with the community, right? This idea that the flagship university in the heart of the biggest city in the state, tons of taxpayer dollars involved, whose mission is to serve lots of diverse communities, is essentially not doing enough, and they haven't done enough over the years to really engage community. To now be talking about something so anomalous, so sort of out there, absurd as a fence when they're already struggling with just how do we connect, how do we solve the problems of homelessness, how do you draw on all the really smart, talented people and research grants to say, what is happening with community policing that we can do a better job? How do we deal with alcoholism and gun violence in our community? All the things that you have really smart people at UNM who could help with, who could help us solve this problem, as opposed to getting back to a 15th century solution like, this sounds familiar, sadly, like, let's build a wall. That'll solve all the problems because, human beings have never figured out how to get around a wall. And if somebody's really got a malicious intent to get on campus and hurt somebody, believe me, an iron fence, especially in the price range these guys are talking about, is not going to stop somebody from doing harm the minute people come outside campus. I spend a lot of time on campus, and I spend as much time across that street as I do on campus.
Sure.
Somebody wants to
sort
hurt
of just
me.
flows, right.
So I agree, there's legitimate concerns, but how about UNM saying, hey, how do we engage all these resources, all these really talented people, students, faculty members, to help solve these safety problems we're having in the city?
Yeah. Just have a real community discussion about it, and
Yeah.
then come up with an action plan, Senator. That's the idea here, that 1.6 million at my Facebook page, people are saying that could pay for a whole lot of campus cops. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's other way. If you're going to go that deep, 1.5 million, let's get creative here. Let's think of some other things beyond just a fence.
And I confess, I looked at it a tiny bit selfishly because of Popejoy and going to events and things at Popejoy. And I have to have handicap parking in.
Right.
And doing the buses doesn't always work for a number of us.
Sure.
So how are we going to get there? So as I said, that was very selfish thought. But there are a lot of people, elderly people, who are ticket holders at Popejoy, and that's an issue for them.
Good point.
I commend the university for looking for safety outlets. I read the article about some other universities. I think it has merits, but I couldn't help but chuckle, and this will show my partisanship. This is the bastion of liberalism in our state, and it's advocating a wall. So I had to chuckle.
Can't be ignored. That cannot be ignored. I'm glad you threw that on the table. That
Just
cannot be ignored.
Just a little bit.
I heard it on Facebook.
I had to
Absolutely,
say that a
absolutely.
little bit.
Harry, interestingly, when you read the journal story, just one quick line here will explain everything. University officials said that parents' concerns led to the consideration of a perimeter wall.
Right. Yeah. And
That
parents
cannot
are
be
concerned.
ignored any longer.
No, it really can't. And just across the board, I think about this for my own kid who's going to Kansas State. I'm going to Beirut for a couple of years, and my wife and I actually had those conversations, and we're UNM faculty members. We're on campus all the time. So there are legitimate concerns. The question is this the way to do it? Is this the way to say to parents, we understand that this is an issue, and we're trying to address it, bearing in mind that a lot of the very high-profile incidents, such as the baseball player who was tragically murdered, that happened off campus. So do you expand the community and expand the remit of the UNM Police Department? How do you actually assure people that their kids are safe? This just strikes me as the wrong way to go.
And to add to that, UNM has this really interesting campaign called the Lobo Life, where they're actually trying to do a day in the life of the kids that are actually experiencing UNM. And what I think is actually really interesting is that this fence doesn't actually represent the brand identity of the Lobo Life, because it's very exclusive, or it's very contained whenever you put this. For example, with Jackson and Jackson Whaler and his unfortunate loss, the Nob Hill area and the UNM area, and also the downtown area, UNM makes a very conscious effort to make sure that they market those areas, because it's life outside of the student life inside the university. And the fence is not going to help bridge those things together. Call it metaphoric, if you will, but it's not. It's definitely going to play an impact on recruitment for students down the road.
That's
Well,
right.
hadn't a lot of the crime been down in the student housing that's down South Campus?
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Well, let me throw another one in there, Senator, because I hear a lot about one of Eric's points about kind of across the street and back is the duck pond. The duck pond is considered not a campus thing. That's considered a community thing.
Oh, really?
Do you know what I mean? By a lot of Albuquerqueans.
By a
We just
lot of-
like to
Oh,
go to the duck pond.
We like to go to the duck
You know what I mean?
pond, yeah.
So
Got it.
whenever there's an assault at the duck pond, that's a problem. People sort of feel that
Right.
a lot deeper. And I'm not quite sure if this wall settles that. Do you know what I mean? It's such a community area. If you think about that bus turnaround that's real just north of the duck pond, how do you secure that area? I mean, that's a whole mess. But Eric, in 2017, we got to state it out here on the table. 211 motor vehicle thefts, 18 rapes reported on campus, 39 burglaries, 15 aggravated assaults. And that's only the reported stuff. And as we know, there's a lot of underreporting here. Does that not say we need to take an extra step here if we're UNM?
No,
those kind of
absolutely.
numbers?
Look, I teach and I'm still on campus myself, so I fortunately have not been the victim of any of these crimes,
Right.
by the grace of God. But yeah, we have to take them seriously. People have to feel safe where they work and where they study. The question is, how do you do that? And if you had to make a list of 10 things you could do, I would put a fence at the bottom of the list. I mean, which people have mentioned additional officers there, additional training. Again, how about talking about how engaging and what some of the core problems are? Like, why is it that we have so many folks with mental health and drug addiction issues who happen to park themselves on campus because it's convenient or sleep in buildings? Some of the things like securing buildings, I think that's totally reasonable. Like access to buildings is a different conversation. The campus as a public space, to get to our earlier conversation, the duck pond, which is a community space.
That's right.
All of the research in urban planning and urban design suggests that the more you make it accessible to everyone, the safer it is. The more isolated it is, then the number of folks who are seeking to do harm or have challenges outnumber the folks, those of us who are just walking around. It's really hard to commit crimes when there's lots of people around.
That's right.
It's much easier when a young student, is by themselves facing somebody who wants to do them harm. We want to open up these spaces. We
That's
want
right.
more people out of it.
Yep. Crystal, I talked to a friend that's in the security business. He made an interesting point. He said, look, don't be fooled here. What they're trying to do is funnel people in these entrances and exits because you can videotape them, of course. You can use facial recognition.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And if you have a problem, and he made an actually interesting point here. If you have a problem, the ability to look back over all those tapes of who walked onto your campus during the day, that day, that's actually have a lot of value for law enforcement.
No,
So does that make sense to you?
Well,
when
and
you
I've worked
put
on
it that
public
way?
events like
Yeah.
Somos ABQ, and we just worked mud volleyball, and I understand, there are some really great security companies that do that same concept of funneling.
Right.
It's better monitoring, et cetera.
Right.
But they're events, right? And those are things where they have much more wild cards into play. UNM is not a wild card. People are there to study. People are there to celebrate the community. People are there for Pope Joy, Hamilton.
Let me challenge you a bit. Just 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
We have had unfortunate situations on many campuses around this country with multiple killings. Do you know what I mean? Is it not prudent to be able to funnel and watch those kind of things very carefully?
Correct. It's actually where you're absolutely correct. Where change happens, though, is on the individual, not the infrastructure.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, we'll be back after a quick break with this group, and we're ready to discuss the threat of tariffs on goods imported from Mexico.